Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki, Sharma, Upadhyay. Let's get started. For the past 1 month, the biggest headline in the world has been the Taliban's takeover of Kabul. India's first priority, of course, was evacuation. That's done. Now India is also bracing for the threat that the Taliban's rise poses. It's a new axis of evil. The coming together of the Taliban, Pakistan and China. It's a security nightmare for the region and the world, but especially for India. The Taliban is talking about Kashmir, raising the voice of Kashmiri Muslims, they say. Who appointed them spokespersons? Surely not Kashmiri Muslims, but they're at it anyway. Pakistan has always dreamt of taking Kashmir. It has released another dossier. This one says that India runs terrorist camps to train the ISIS. Please believe it or not, Pakistan edition. And China wants to take Arunachal Pradesh. An old military plan is going viral on Chinese social media. It says Beijing will take Arunachal Pradesh by 2040. This is wishful thinking, most of it. But it shows what India's neighbors want and what kind of threat they pose to India's interests and security. Tonight, we'll discuss this three-front threat and how India is preparing to deal with it. Also on the show, is the Taliban's Deputy Prime Minister Mullah Baradar dead? Is he injured or is he missing? A special report on how infighting in the Taliban is fueling such reports. America's parting gift to Afghanistan, a mistaken drone strike that kills 10 innocent civilians, including 7 children. The US had called the attack righteous and a strike on ISIS. North Korea is at it again. It has test-fired a long-range cruise missile. Tokyo and Washington have called it a threat to the region. And tech giants are investing on the oldest human dream, reverse aging. We'll tell you all about it. We begin, as always, with Gravitas Global Headlines.
Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has called for unimpeded access for humanitarian assistance to Afghan people, saying that only the UN has the capacity to monitor and ensure unbiased distribution of aid material. Fumio Kishida, a contender to become the next Prime Minister of Japan, has said Japan must counter neighboring China's assertiveness by beefing up the Coast Guard and improving its coordination with the military. Meanwhile, Japan will be giving defense equipment and technology to Vietnam under an agreement as the two sides step up their military cooperation. Chinese regulators are ordering sweeping changes to the country's biggest payment app, Alipay, as the ruling Communist Party continues its crackdown on tech giants. Reports say Beijing wants a separate app for the company's highly profitable loans business. Israel carried out airstrikes in the Gaza Strip in response to Palestinian rocket fire into its territory for a third consecutive night. The Israeli army said that a rocket fired from Gaza into Israel was intercepted by Israel's anti-missile system. It said another missile was also shot down by the Iron Dome system. A new bill in the US might make it easier for Indians living in the United States on a work visa to obtain green cards. Soon, Indians in the US could jump the green card backlog queue by paying a supplemental fee of $5,000 and get their permanent visas or green cards. According to reports, children of H-1B holders who have turned 21 will also get a chance to obtain permanent residency and citizenship. According to a report, 227 environmental defenders were killed in 2020, which is a record high. In 2019, 212 such murders happened. Nations listed as the most dangerous are Colombia, Mexico, the Philippines, Brazil, and Nicaragua. Thousands fled their homes after wildfires broke out in the southern Spanish region of Andalusia. The Spanish government has deployed a military unit to help firefighters in the mountainous region. Astronauts at the International Space Station conducted a 6.5-hour spacewalk aimed at upgrading the station's solar panels, also called solar arrays. The current solar arrays have fed power to the ISS for more than 20 years, but were designed for a 15-year service life and have started showing signs of degradation. World number 2 Daniil Medvedev has claimed a maiden Grand Slam title after beating world number 1 Novak Djokovic in the final of the US Open. Playing in his third Grand Slam final, Medvedev completed a 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 win against a below-par Djokovic, whose hopes of becoming the first man in 52 years to complete a calendar slam were dashed. Karim Benzema scored a hat-trick as Real Madrid marked their return to the Santiago Bernabeu with a 5-2 win over Celta Vigo in the Spanish league. In their first game at their home ground since March 2020, Real were 2-1 down at half-time, but were bailed out of trouble by the French veteran. New signing Eduardo Camavinga also got on the score sheet as Real climbed to the top of the table.
It's been a month since the Taliban took power in Afghanistan. On this show, we've given you a blow-by-blow account of how it played out. Tonight, we want to focus on what this means for India. A triple whammy. That's what it means for India. That's what India is bracing for. Pakistan, China and the Taliban are joining hands. Together, they form the new axis of evil, and India is preparing to deal with this combined challenge. This is not a hypothetical scenario anymore. This is what they call a clear and present danger. Let me tell you what's happening. First, the Taliban, a bunch of regressive radicals. They won Kabul and now they talk about Kashmir. Taliban leaders say they want to quote-unquote raise their voice for Kashmiri Muslims. Who appointed them as Kashmir spokespersons? They did it themselves. And other terror groups, the Taliban's friends and partners like the Al-Qaeda, are warming up to the idea of a new campaign on Kashmir. India must be on alert. Then we come to Pakistan, the masterminds of the global terrorist game. They're firing propaganda missiles now, trying to malign and divide India. We'll give you the latest examples of what they're up to. The third challenge is China, with its military games on the border and its eyes on Arunachal Pradesh. An old article is going viral in China. It says Beijing will take Taiwan by 2025 and Arunachal Pradesh by 2040. Is it a coincidence that this is being circulated now? We'll discuss all three challenges in detail and why India cannot afford to ignore any one of them. The nature of these threats may seem different, but their goals are the same. One, to keep India engaged and distracted with unnecessary border disputes. Two, to provide momentum to separatist and divisive elements. And three, to hurt India's reputation abroad. How should New Delhi plan to deal with this new axis of evil? India needs a three-pronged plan. One is to militarily be prepared, a comprehensive military plan to defend against security threats. Two, leverage to protect its interests in the region. And three, engagement with global partners to stop the crisis in Afghanistan from spilling over. It is still early days, but India is already working on all these three levels. Let me tell you what New Delhi has been up to. First, the military response. Indian security forces will now be specially trained to fight the Taliban, we are told. Forces involved in counter-terrorism operations will get this special training. What will this entail? These soldiers will be briefed about the Taliban's leadership, their modus operandi. They will work, how they work and how they fight. All of this will be told to Indian forces. Who will get this training? The Border Security Forces, Central Reserve Police Force, state police units, and all forces basically involved in counter-terrorism operations. So Indian forces are getting battle ready. What about leverage? How does India propose to gain and use it? The biggest asset for New Delhi is its support to democracy in Afghanistan. even after the Taliban's takeover, India is supporting and calling for an inclusive government in Kabul, one that represents all sections of the Afghan society. India is supporting Afghans, giving visas to those who want to leave. Around 25 to 30,000 visa applications are being considered. 4,000 have already been granted. Scores were rescued during the evacuation operations, including Afghan lawmakers and members of the minority community. All of these moves make India an important stakeholder in Afghanistan's future. Then we come to the third part of India's strategy, engagement with the global community. It's an undeniable fact that all key stakeholders in the region and beyond are working closely with India. They see India as part of the solution. Last week, we saw several high-level exchanges. Spy chiefs from the US, the UK and Russia were in Delhi to discuss what was happening in Kabul. India also hosted the BRICS summit, where it pushed the New Delhi Declaration. It backs India's stand on Afghanistan. All BRICS leaders agreed that Afghanistan should not become a terror sanctuary. These engagements will continue in the coming weeks. The new foreign minister of Iran is expected to visit India later this month. Reports say that Tehran wants New Delhi to play a bigger role in Afghanistan, and India is assessing the threats and opportunities that this situation presents. It won't be easy. The odds are stacked against New Delhi, but it's moving fast to neutralize this new axis of evil. The second part of this equation is Pakistan, a perennial threat/nuisance for India. Pakistan is at it again. This time they're trying their hand at comic fiction. There's no better way to put it. Pakistan has published a dossier, yet another dossier, which claims to have, quote-unquote, irrefutable evidence that India is running terror camps. I know it sounds off, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Pakistan is apparently giving irrefutable evidence that India is running terrorist camps. And wait till you hear which terror outfit they say is being trained at these camps. The Islamic State. Like I said, comic fiction. And we do understand that drug supplies from Afghanistan have skyrocketed recently. We cannot confirm if this dossier is a fallout of that. But it's high time, we say, that Islamabad got a hold of itself. To claim that India is training the ISIS is, among other things, an outright insult to the collective intelligence of the NATO, which has made it a life mission to fight the ISIS. Let me show you the dossier. A 131-page document released on Sunday at a press conference in Islamabad. Look at the attendees. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Human Rights Minister Shireen Mazari, and National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf. Three of Pakistan's biggest conspiracy theorists. Qureshi said the dossier not only contains proof of India's role in training ISIS terrorists, but evidence on how it is changing the demographic structure of Kashmir through draconian laws, intimidation and coercion. All accusations which India has busted at the UN time and again. Where did this irrefutable evidence come from? Indian think tanks, apparently. This is what Islamabad claims. The dossier has been compiled on the basis of reports by 26 international media outlets, 14 Pakistani media outlets, and 41 Indian think tanks. Which think tanks are these? That Mr. Qureshi did not specify. We don't think he will. This is the foreign minister of a country which pursues terror as a state policy. He is accusing India of human rights violations, apartheid, extrajudicial killings, terror funding, proxy wars, infiltration of weapons. By the end of it, you wonder if Pakistan is talking about itself, because their record is no secret. Pakistan's human rights violations in Balochistan, its apartheid against Ahmadiyya Muslims, the extrajudicial killings of Hindus and Christians, the rampant desecration of temples and churches by extremists, the funds that Pakistan gives to Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, the proxy war it's fighting in Afghanistan, the weapons it tries to smuggle into Kashmir, all of this is a matter of record. Pakistan's dossier is not worth the paper it's printed on. Why did it bother with this dossier? The dossier of lies, as we call it. Because timing. Look at the timing and you'll have the answer. This comes right ahead of the UNGA session, United Nations General Assembly. It begins on the 23rd of this month, next week. Pakistan will be cornered for supporting the Taliban and destabilizing Afghanistan. So Imran Khan is not going in person, we are told. He may not have found a jet on loan. That too could be a factor. So he's joining from Pakistan while his team builds a counter-narrative in advance. with no hope, I'm sure, of finding any takers. I say this because Pakistan has a history of releasing fake dossiers which sink without a trace. They've tried it in 2009, again in 2015, 2020, it didn't work, so why do it again? To try to counter India's systematic exposure of their terror infrastructure, which results in pressure and censure from the world. Long story short, this dossier is a damp squib. Some fodder perhaps for the domestic media, some ideas for fiction writers, and a new assignment for Rawalpindi's keyboard warriors. That's all there is to it. The bigger worry for India, we say, is Pakistan's iron brother China. That's part 3 of India's challenge. In China, an old time capsule has resurfaced. An article that predicts China's future. What does it look like? 6 wars in 40 years, including one against India in Arunachal Pradesh. That is what the oracle says. Let me give you some background. This piece of prophecy is nearly 8 years old. It was first published in 2013 by a Chinese internet company called Sohu. Now it has resurfaced on Chinese social media. Nobody knows why, but it's going viral. The article was far-fetched in 2013. It is still far-fetched today. Here's what it says. China will fight 6 wars in 40 years. That's from 2020 to 2060. Spoiler alert, they win all 6. The author calls them inevitable wars. So apparently China has no option but to fight, which is strange because all 6 wars are invasions, not acts of self-defense. War number 1 happens between 2020 and 2025. The target is Taiwan. It is supposed to be a no challenge, no US intervention, no Japanese help. The PLA will wrap it up in 3 months. War number 2 is between 2025 and 2030. This is a bigger campaign, the South China Sea. Beijing will first send an ultimatum to countries around the Spratly Islands. They will wait for 3 years and then invade. Again, no intervention from the US. China basically walks over Southeast Asia. With 2 wars done, Beijing will focus on India, we are told, on Arunachal Pradesh, or as the Chinese call it, South Tibet. This war will happen between 2035 and 2040. What will be China's strategy? The author has 2 ideas. First is to disintegrate India. We are talking about the world's largest democracy, a union built on shared ideals and history. No separatist movement has succeeded in India. In fact, those movements have made India stronger. But China wants to break up that union. I guess in China there's no tax on dreaming. The second strategy is Kashmir. Make India and Pakistan fight over Kashmir while China invades Arunachal Pradesh. Basically a sneak attack. War number 4 is on the Senkaku Islands. Japan controls these islands, but China has always claimed sovereignty over them. This war happens between 2040 and 2045. US and Europe are bystanders. So in 6 months, the PLA hammer the Japanese. On to the next war, Outer Mongolia. This territory belonged to China's Qing dynasty. Today it makes up the nation-state of Mongolia. Again, no contest for the Chinese here. By 2050, they say, they're supposed to conquer Mongolia. The last war is a strange one. Between 2055 and 2060, China is supposed to fight Russia. What for? Well, no particular reason. A few centuries back, Russia annexed Chinese territories, and this war is supposed to be payback. I guess all the ice cream dates did not work. Beijing sees Russia as the final frontier, the last step to becoming a global hegemon. So there you have it. 6 wars, 6 decisive victories. We say absolute nonsense. Would China like to invade these territories? I'm sure they would. I'm sure they do. But these predictions are borderline fiction, what we call an armchair general. For starters, they basically spill their entire strategy, when the attacks will happen, who will lead them, and what response they're expecting. Take the so-called war for Arunachal. They're thinking of 2 strategies, either divide India or distract India. Neither will work. India has fought a multi-front war before. It was a resounding success. Plus, the PLA's effectiveness in that terrain is subpar. They're actually trying to recruit Tibetan youth to fill the gap. Same with the war on Russia. This is a nuclear superpower. Unlike India, Russia does not have a no first use policy. They could nuke China in minutes. Has the author forgotten all of this? Or ignored it conveniently? The bottom line is this. The Sohu article is wishful thinking on steroids. No country can fight non-stop for 40 years. It would run out of supplies and people. But what does it reveal? It reveals China's worldview. Remember Deng Xiaoping's words, hide your strength, bide your time. This so-called military plan is the definition of a long game. Think about it, 2060. Will the current Chinese leaders even be alive for that? It seems unlikely. But that's how things work in Beijing. A lot of scheming that cuts across generations and leaders. The question is, why has this article resurfaced after 8 years? It's difficult to say. Are the Chinese people giving Beijing a nudge? Or is Beijing reminding the world of its missions? In China, you never know. While this article's nuances are laughable, the end game is not. Given a chance, China would do all of the above. In fact, they're already making moves in Taiwan, which is supposed to be its first war. For the last 9 days, Chinese warplanes have been buzzing around Taiwan. It started on the 5th of September when 19 Chinese jets breached Taiwan's air defense zone. Since then, the PLA has carried out incursions every single day. The last one was on Sunday, the 13th of September, when an anti-submarine aircraft was spotted near Taiwan's southwestern coast. What explains China's actions? What is Taiwan doing in response? How is America making things worse? And how is Japan getting sucked into this conflict? Our next report gets you all the details.
With the world busy assessing the ramifications of the Taliban's return, China is slowly trying to alter the status quo in the South China Sea. In the last 9 days, Chinese jets have carried out multiple incursions in Taiwan's air defense zone. It began on the 5th of September, when at least 19 Chinese aircraft breached the Taiwanese airspace. This included one Y-8 anti-submarine aircraft, 4 Xi'an H-6 aircraft, 10 Shenyang J-16 jets, and 4 Sukhoi Su-30 aircraft. Since then, Beijing has sent a mix of spotter planes, fighter jets and bombers into Taiwan's air defense zone every single day. The latest incursion happened on the 12th of September, when the PLA's Y-8 anti-submarine aircraft was spotted along Taiwan's southwestern coast in complete violation of territorial norms. Taiwan's defense ministry is alarmed. It says these incursions signal the beginning of a new escalation in its conflict with China. In response, Taiwan has launched its annual war games to test its defenses in case of a bigger provocation by China. The 5-day Hankuang live fire drills began on Monday by testing Taiwan's ability to respond to simulated biochemical attacks from the PLA. Taiwan fears that such an attack can paralyze its defenses and hamper its ability to monitor troop deployments. Since Beijing lacks transport and logistical abilities for a large-scale invasion, the threat of such biochemical attacks cannot be downplayed. In fact, it is worsening, especially after reports that Washington is considering allowing Taiwan's representative office in the United States to change its name from the Taipei Representative Office to the Taiwan Representative Office. On Sunday, the Global Times warned that such a change would provoke a severe military and economic response to combat what it called American arrogance.
The U.S. should abide by the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 U.S.-China joint communiques. Take practical actions to honor its commitments. Stop any form of official contacts with Taiwan or moves enhancing their substantive relations, including replacing the name of Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office with Taiwan Representative Office, and refrain from sending wrong signals to Taiwan independence.
The warnings may be aimed at the United States and Taiwan, but their allies too could get sucked into this conflict, like Japan, which claims to have spotted a suspected Chinese submarine near its territorial waters, along with a Chinese destroyer sailing in the vicinity. All these sightings and incursions and threats point towards an escalation in the days ahead. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Two weeks back, he was poised to be Afghanistan's new Prime Minister. Today we are debating if he is alive. I'm talking about Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, the Taliban's global face and Deputy Prime Minister. Is he dead, alive or missing? The verdict on social media is clear. There was a heated discussion between Taliban factions, guns were drawn and Baradar was fatally shot. There is reason why these theories are gaining traction. Baradar has been missing in action. He's been absent without official leave. When Sirajuddin Haqqani made a public appearance and he's got $10 million on his head, but Baradar has not been seen. Where is he? Why is he missing? Traveling, apparently. A Taliban spokesman released an audio message recorded by Mullah Baradar. He says all the talk around his death is propaganda. Listen to this.
نو بلی خواته تلم الحمدلله ټول ملګری مور جوړ روغ تیار تکړی بس دا کمی رسنی شي دا اکثر وخت دغه شی بیا د تبلیغات او شرمونکي دروغ وای نو دغه په باب باندې بس خپل په جرأت سره دا خبره رد کا کم خبره نسته نه کوم مشکل سره الحمدلله بس سل په سل کې اطمینان د کوالام وساته دعاګانې کوي السلام علیکم ورحمت الله وبرکاته.
For the record, we cannot verify this audio. But chances are, it is the real Baradar. He is most likely alive. So why is social media intent on killing him? A couple of weeks back, they said he was injured. Now they say that he is dead. Both appear to be conspiracy theories. But remember, there is no smoke without fire. There's a proxy war unfolding inside the Taliban. One group is supported by Qatar. The other is by Pakistan. Mullah Baradar belongs to the Qatar faction. He has a bad history with Pakistan. In 2010, Pakistani authorities arrested him. There are reports that he was tortured. In contrast, Qatar put him in posh hotels. They appointed him leader in waiting. It's clear where Mullah Baradar's loyalty lies. The other faction is the Taliban's godfather, Pakistan. They support the likes of Sirajuddin Haqqani and Mullah Yaqub. Right now, this faction appears more powerful in Kabul. They control the Home Ministry and the Defense Ministry of Afghanistan. Basically, they bring the muscle. They also bring Pakistan's military support. We saw that in Panjshir. Pakistani drones changed the tide of the war. They've firmly taken control of the Taliban government. So the question is, what can Qatar do? South Asia is uncharted territory for them. They can embed their mouthpiece Al Jazeera with the Taliban, but they cannot offer military support, not the kind that Pakistan can. Although Qatar does have something that Pakistan doesn't, money, and a lot of it. They have been flying daily aid flights to Afghanistan. They're working to rebuild the Kabul airport, and on Sunday, their foreign minister visited Kabul. He met the Taliban's Prime Minister Mullah Hassan Akhund, Deputy Prime Minister Abdul Salam Hanafi, and other members of the cabinet. Guess who was not part of the meeting? Mullah Baradar. Was he kept out, or was he traveling again? The Taliban won't say. Qatar asked the Taliban to protect women's rights. They also said it's too early to recognize the Taliban government. It's rich coming from an absolute monarchy which has banned political parties, provided a base to the Taliban, and tells the world to not be emotional about it. But that's world politics in 2021. Apparently, it's all about the lesser evil. Meanwhile, the greater evil was busy holding talks of its own. Pakistan's ISI chief is a busy man these days. He's either holding parleys in Kabul or scheming with his fellow spy masters in Islamabad. On Saturday, he hosted his regional counterparts, intelligence chiefs from China, Russia, Iran, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. None of them confirmed the meeting. But rumor is that Pakistan is trying to take the lead. The ISI chief reportedly said that Afghanistan should not be left alone. Too late for that. Had Pakistan left Afghanistan alone, it would still be a modern republic, not a medieval emirate. After toppling the elected government, putting extremists in power and invading Panjshir Valley, Pakistan now wants to be Afghanistan's friend. This proxy contest between Qatar and Pakistan will be crucial. Qatar brings in deep pockets. They also have more leverage with the Americans. Pakistan brings covert military support. They also have China in their corner. It really is a sad state of affairs. Big powers trying to win over an extremist government. a government whose ministers are missing, wanted, or probably dead. And that's not even the most shocking story of the day. Do you remember the surgical strike that America conducted soon after the Kabul attack? Washington said that ISIS wanted to target the airport again, so they dispatched their drone and struck a home. The US announced that they neutralized terror targets, they destroyed a bomb and foiled an ISIS attack. They lied. An investigation by the American press has revealed that they may have killed innocents in what they're calling now a mistaken drone strike. Here's a report.
The US wrapped up its 20-year-long war in Afghanistan with a missile attack and another criminal blunder. We're talking about the final days of evacuation. There had been an attack on the Kabul airport. A suicide bomber had killed hundreds of people. The US said another attack was imminent. So it sent a drone and struck a car. The US claimed the car was carrying a bomb. It congratulated itself for foiling another attack. Mission successful. High-profile ISIS targets neutralized. That's what America told the world. It said the drone attack was righteous, America's parting gift to Afghanistan. It was yet another lie. According to the American press, the drone strike didn't neutralize an ISIS terrorist. It ended up killing an innocent aid worker. Also, there was no bomb. The American drone killed 10 innocents instead, 7 children and 3 adults, killed in what the US called a righteous strike. The victims are 43-year-old Zamari Ahmadi and his family. He worked for California-based aid group Nutrition and Education International. On the day of the attack, Americans were closely following him and his car. They believed his activities were suspicious. They said Ahmadi made a pit stop at an alleged ISIS safe house near the airport and was seen loading heavy packages into his car. The Americans believed these packages contained explosives. Turns out, Ahmadi was only loading water cartons. He had stopped at his office to fill up water. He wanted to take the cartons home. Ahmadi managed to get home safely, unaware that an American drone was following him. He parked his car inside the courtyard of his home. That's where the Americans struck. Zamari Ahmadi was killed alongside 9 members of his family.
This was my best friend's house. He was an engineer and had nothing to do with the army. He had nothing to do with the Taliban or anyone else either. He was an engineer. 10 people have been killed, including 7 children. There's a lot of fear because of the strike. I came here after 5 minutes. People were lying in a terrible condition. I did my best to take them out. He was working as an engineer and had nothing to do with Daesh or any other organization. Zamarai's family and his nephews were killed in this. I arrived here after 5 minutes of the strike, which cannot be defined in words. I haven't been able to sleep because of the trauma. I cannot define my condition in words.
The evidence is clear. Will America admit its mistake? So far, it hasn't. US officials say they are conducting an investigation into the strike.
US military forces conducted an unmanned over-the-horizon airstrike on a vehicle known to be an imminent ISIS-K threat. This self-defense strike successfully hit the target near Kabul airport. Significant secondary explosions from the targeted vehicle indicated the presence of a substantial amount of explosive material. We are aware of reports of civilian casualties, and we take these reports very seriously, and we are continuing to assess the situation.
I'm standing in Khwaja Bugra vicinity of Kabul, outside the house which was targeted by a US drone on the 29th of August. I thought of following up because I was here hours after the strike took place. The family has now left. There's a lock that is there on the door. You can see that the car that was targeted, that is there, that is very much there. The neighbors here tell me that the family had left immediately after, days after that, and it's been about 2 weeks since they have not been here.
Since 9/11, American drone and airstrikes have killed at least 22,000 civilians. These numbers confirm what the world has known all along. The US forces have the world's most powerful weapons, and they don't hesitate in using them against innocent civilians. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
A superpower lost, a president fled, the forces abandoned their posts, the resistance was also crushed. Running over Afghanistan may have been a cakewalk for the Taliban, but turning the country into its dream emirate or hammering it with the Taliban's version of the Sharia will not be easy. There are still many in Afghanistan who are unafraid to stand up to the terror group, unafraid to fight for their country and their culture. The brave women of Afghanistan, for example, they have a message for the Taliban. And it reads, #Do not touch my clothes. Let me show you what's happening on social media. A protest as unique as the Afghan crisis. The women on your screen are from Afghanistan. Some are still in the country, some outside it. They have come together to protest the Taliban, and this is how they're doing it. Afghan women are posting photos in their traditional attire, the real attire of Afghanistan, not the burqa, which, by the way, originated in Persia. That's modern-day Iran. Burqa is not Afghan. These clothes are. But the Taliban wants the world to believe otherwise. They're imposing the burqa, endorsing it as an inseparable part of the Afghan culture, making the veil compulsory in classrooms. The women are not okay with it, and they shouldn't be. Afghan women have taken to social media to show the world, and most importantly the Taliban, that what real Afghan culture really looks like, what real Afghan attire looks like. These vibrant clothes reflect the diversity of Afghan culture. Embroidered in these clothes is the resilience of Afghan women. Unlike their president, unlike their forces, these women are refusing to give up. They're fighting to keep their country and their traditions alive, fighting for the diversity of Afghanistan, something that the Taliban are trying to obliterate under the burqa. And they're fighting like a woman. This is a story the world needs to pay attention to. Here is a country where Queen Soraya Tarzi had once torn her veil in public. She encouraged Afghan women to exercise choice. This was as early as the 1900s. And in 2021, the Taliban are trying to control that choice. Do you know the women of Afghanistan won the right to vote even before American women did? In 1919, to be precise. This is the real Afghanistan. It is progressive. Its women are free. This is the rich heritage the Taliban are trying to hammer. They want women to settle as a lesser gender, stay hidden behind covers. Women have little choice under the Taliban. Wear the burqa or don't attend the class. That's the Taliban's diktat. The terror group wants the world to believe that such repression is rooted in Afghan culture. Well, it's not. I could show you photos of Afghan girls walking the streets in Kabul in clothes of their choice, but then you would have already seen them numerous times. So instead, I'll ask you a question. Why are we silently watching a terror group trample all over women's rights? Why is the world doing nothing to save Afghan women from the Taliban's rule? Don't believe in what the Taliban have to say. They want the world to believe Afghan women are happy following their medieval orders. Look at this. This happened over the weekend. At least 300 women gathered in Kabul to support the Taliban's diktat on clothing. These women were covered head to toe. Many wore black gloves too. Most had their eyes covered and all waved the Taliban flag. What you see on your screen now are the two sides of Afghanistan. One fighting to retain their freedom and rights. Another, a staged rally most likely for the Islamic Emirate. I'm sure there are women in Afghanistan who want to wear a burqa. And then there are those who don't. And that's the whole point that we're trying to make. It's a matter of choice. And burqa, frankly, has become a symbol for that lack of choice. Women want to study, they want to work, they want to choose who or what they will be. This protest is to reclaim that choice. We say more power to Afghan women. Let's turn to the Silicon Valley. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is trying to live forever. Is immortality even possible? Jeff Bezos thinks it is. Bezos is investing in a startup that is trying to reverse aging. First things first, is reverse aging even possible? Is it a thing? Can it happen? Scientists believe it can. They're trying to deep dive into our genetic makeup and zero in on the genetic code for staying youthful. In other words, scientists are trying to find the fountain of youth. Now, of course, all of this requires the best of talent and an enormous flow of money to enable the research. Enter billionaires. They're happy to fund as long as pouring money gives them a shot at staying alive and rich a little longer. This man is Yuri Milner. He's a Russian-born billionaire. Milner has started a company called Altus Labs. The aim is to pursue biological reprogramming, simply put, find ways to live longer. This is the startup that Bezos has invested in. With the money muscle, the two billionaires hope to recruit the best of scientists from the world over. The plan is to offer them lavish salaries, give them the freedom to make reverse aging a reality in whichever way possible. One of the scientists reportedly joining the lab is Juan Carlos Belmonte. He's a Spanish biologist. In the past, he won notoriety for mixing human embryo with monkey embryo. This man is a firm believer in reverse aging. Also joining the lab is Shinya Yamanaka. Who is he? The 2012 Nobel laureate in medicine. He won the Nobel for discovering reprogramming. This Japanese scientist has proven that a mature cell can return to an immature state. Can an entire human body do the same? Also, has reverse aging been tried on humans before? The answer to the second question is no, at least not that we know of. Reverse aging has been tried on mice, though, and it was done by none other than Belmonte. Some animals he experimented on lived about 30% longer. Some developed deadly tumors. But humans cannot risk tumors. So the challenge before scientists is to restore a person's youth without killing him. A lot of companies have signed up for this challenge, at least 5 to 8 of them. You must have heard about Larry Page. He's a co-founder of Google. He too runs a longevity company. It's called Calico Labs. The business model is the same, the best of talent and a huge pool of money. Has Page been able to reverse aging? Not yet. But it may be a matter of time before one company cracks the code and others follow. It's a bit like space travel, you could say. In reverse aging too, billionaires are betting on science. And what really does research need? A strong concept, a pool of talent and demand, also investment. Reverse aging has all 4. Just to give you an idea, Altos alone has raised around $270 million. Google spent $1 billion on Calico Labs. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison spent over $250 million to fund anti-aging research. But some scientists say even with all this money, reverse aging may not be possible, at least not yet. They say it's too early to turn this theory into practice. What about ethics? Let's keep science aside for a moment. Is it ethical to play with the law of nature? Will our world survive if all of us started living longer or forever? Do we have the resources to feed so many mouths? The space to accommodate every undying soul? We don't. Have we thought about the repercussions of immortality? Also, will it be fair if the rich live forever because they can afford to buy longer lives while the poor struggled to get even basic medicines? You see, immortality is the Frankenstein's monster we are better off not bringing to life. As for reverse aging, or looking younger by a couple of years, isn't that happening already? Science says people can live longer with proper diet, healthcare, vaccination. There are cosmetic procedures offering a wrinkle-free skin, a fuller cheek. What else do humans want? We humans are a greedy and scarily ambitious bunch. We'll settle for nothing less than immortality, it seems. There are people who strongly believe that one day death will be a thing of the past. People are signing up to preserve their bodies till then, with the hope that one day, with the help of technology, they can be brought back to life. The method of preservation is called cryogenics. You must have heard about it. There are people spending upwards of $28,000 towards preserving each body. And then there are the Jeff Bezoses of the world, putting their money and weight behind technologies that were unthought of even a couple of decades ago. While signing off as the Amazon CEO, Bezos told his employees, and I quote, "Staving off death is a thing that you have to work at." He was quoting biologist Richard Dawkins, and back then he was talking about keeping a company relevant. In hindsight, we know the letter also dropped hints about his next project, Immortality. Good food for thought, if nothing else. We'll leave you with this and Gravitas images. Thanks for watching.
Oh my goodness, a cat was hanging from the upper deck by his claws. The cat fell and they were holding flags underneath. When they were holding the flag, his claws, and they caught him. I think they caught the cat. Oh my goodness, a cat was hanging from the upper deck by his claws. The cat fell and they were holding.
They're going to have to look to take two. They're going to have to take a chance now. Oh, dog. Oh, the dog has the ball. Oh, here we go. Now that is... Now there we go. Dog has stopped play. Oh, there we go. I think we'll retrieve the ball. It may need a clean.
One World Trade Center that is the one where the impact.
The cause of India's freedom for many years.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
America is a constant work in progress.